Thanks for watching The Instant Reaction. For full episodes of the Cannon Podcast, sign up as a YouTube member on this channel or go to patreon.com/thecannonpod. Hello and welcome to the not-so-instant reaction with Alexander Moneypenny and the most technically challenged man in the world,
George V. You don't see my smiling, beaming face, but you hear a very frustrated. Well, I don't know, not quite frustrated with the tech, but I thought the game was actually okay. But how are you doing, mate? How are you doing?
Do you have any headphones you could put on?
Let me see. Let me see if I can find
that.
That
would be glorious. While we do that, I have one thought.
Well, that was fucking
more complicated than it needed to be. Way more complicated than it needed to be. Jesus Christ. Yeah, that was there's a lot to unpack there. I think with these games, there's always a temptation to I think we need to try and work out exactly what can be analysed and what can be sort of, because it's not often we're going to start with Kivior and Jorginho and whatever, so we can try and look at the individuals and try and make sense of the team stuff as much as we can. Yeah, that was unnecessarily stressful is my main feeling, George.
Well, okay, so I mean, I had probably a different reaction to it. I mean, I looked at the team, what was clearly a fringe team against a very strong Brentford, right? And what I'm looking for, I think there was a game of two halves that happened, right? I think the first half we were pretty brilliant for the most part, to be honest with you. We won quite a bit of duels. I thought for the most part there was a lot of really bright performances, and I think that there's a lot of maybe interesting positions that we tried out that, of course, you know, a lot of people have wanted to see, but also in general, I think that there was a lot of new experimentation, and I thought it led to quite a bit of fluid and also really good central access for the most part for the first half. And then I think the second half, Thomas Frank got really angry at Brentford and basically said, fix up. And I think for the most part, we really struggled to kind of put an identity out on that team afterwards. But I think we pretty much scathed a first choice Brentford team with an academy debut that nobody really ever heard of. And we tried out new experimentation and we snuck out with a win, which I think is pretty much mostly what you're going to ask for if you're going to field a team that mostly had, two consistent starters, maybe three if you're going to include Aaron Ramsdale.
Yeah, I hear that. I feel the second half. I suppose what I'm feeling at the moment in terms of the result in the wake of the Spurs game is I'm thinking a lot about our game management, and I didn't feel we managed that occasion particularly well. I think we were lucky in some senses that Brentford's finishing was probably poorer than maybe we deserved, and in some ways it's quite nice considering how the beginning of the season's gone that, you know, that one chance for Witter in the first half doesn't end up in a 1-1. I thought we rode the wave well, you know, to some degree. I have to say we defended well. I thought Kivior did well. I thought Tomiyasu did well. Gabriel did well. I think all across our back line, we even saw a return of some long thought dead individuals. But I did feel, especially towards the end, we were reliant far too much, or far more than I'd like, on our defence to kind of bail us out of that situation. And it just felt as though sort of from about 75 minutes in, we just sort of accepted that this was going to be the way that it was, and sort of sat back, made the substitutions that we made, brought on defenders for attackers and defenders for midfielders. Look, that's a kind of game state in a situation. I don't think that's necessarily anything to analyse. It was frustrating. Let's try and look at the first half then. What were you encouraged by most? I thought there were some nice performances. I mean, it's nice to see 4 of the 5 of the front line from Hale End, obviously. Nelson, I want to start there. I thought Nelson was really, really good tonight.
Excellent. I think he was probably one of our best technical outlets in the entire match. I thought that under pretty much tight conditions, and he always offered himself as really an assured option on the ball. I thought Nelson did brilliantly, and, you know, he was almost arrogant to an extent. There were some times that he was just receiving, kind of rolling the ball off his foot, really taking charge, but also kind of baiting Brentford in. And I think that, you know, he was a really important player in that first half to give some people who haven't had starts in over a year a little bit of an education on kind of who was the adult in the room for a bit. But then slowly, I do want to talk about him next. I thought he had a brilliant performance at right central midfield. And I think that what we ended up seeing was a really fluid performance that I think Hale End gave us the chemistry, even though that team hadn't really played together at all thought it was a mismatch of a team, if I'm really being honest with you, especially in the front line. Charles Sajo Jr., I know people don't know him quite well, but he's definitely not somebody that you would highlight for the right wing role on the touchline. I mean, he can do it, and I think he was very safe, but he really didn't do much of anything, I would say. I think that's a little harsh, but I mean, that's all
No,
he really wants.
He was
right?
safe, and that's kind of probably understandable for a young player. Where has he played for the academy? Obviously, you know him better than me.
I mean, he's primarily played at left wing or as a false nine. And, you know, I think through the middle, he had really a growth spurt that happened kind of over the last year. And so he really has been playing through the middle quite excellently. And I think he's a versatile attacker that's got excellent ball striking on both feet, and he's really good in combination play. But for the most part, he would be kind of more of an inside winger or a false nine as kind of his main position. So he definitely played out of position. So I'm not going to critique him too much there. But I think even Eddie had a really good game off the ball. Pressing wise, he was phenomenal. And he looked freer in this role, certainly in the first half. And I think as the game went on, as the game became a little bit more of a battle, I think he actually lost a lot of the technical security that he started the half with. But for the most part, it was, I think Reece Nelson was the one that showed kind of that control on the ball. And I think Jorginho, ironically, had a tough start, good end. And it was Nelson that was taking the technical responsibility from the team in the first half.
Yeah. I want to come to a comment from Comdine Masumi. He says Ben White was not playing the ball in relation to Sajo Jr.
Yeah.
Is it Sajo Jr. or Sago Jr.?
I am not the person of the pronunciations to confirm that.
Ajax, Art City. I think it's Sajo. I could be wrong. Mr. Junior. I did feel that. I actually feel that that's a wider thing across the team. I thought Smith Rowe grew into that. I didn't feel like he was necessarily being earmarked from the players behind the ball to receive it. I thought Havertz needed to demand it a little bit more, but I also felt, yes, Sajo Jr., Sago Jr., whatever his name is, I felt as though he was safe, but he also wasn't trusted, I don't think. And to some degree, I understand that. I think we have that expectation on the left-hand side. There was a moment where Ben White stepped forward, and we all know in our sort of template of the team, the next pass is to Saka. We all know it's going to Saka, and you can see White go, the next ball's to it's not there. And you can kind of see that happening. So I feel sorry for him to a degree. I think he could have made a bit more of an impact on the game and probably, and done something a bit more, but it's his first start. It's a big moment. I want to turn to the sort of atmosphere side of things.
Mm-hmm.
As much as I do feel it was maybe an unnecessarily hard game, I do feel something about Brentford Stadium makes games feel more intense than they are. Like even during the first half, in the periods of domination that we had, whenever they came forward, you go, and you can hear it in the commentators as well, because they're going, and they're coming forward here. And actually, it's like a 2v4, and you're like, wait, why you sound it sounds like it's a 3v1 kind of breakaway. How much do you think that plays into it? Because I do think in terms of, I remember that game against Brentford that we lost 2-0. Listen, we didn't play well that night. I'm not trying to excuse it, but it felt like the end of the world because of the way that Brentford Stadium can operate. How much do you think that kind of played into it?
Look, Brentford is not an easy place to go to. And for the most part, mate, that was a first team 11. That wasn't a mixture of academy grads and a mixture of fringe players on their own part. That was absolutely something that, they wanted to win. They wanted to progress in the cup. And I think that they had a really tough loss against Everton, right, very recently. And I think that stadium was up for it. They were annoyed. In the first half, they were really pushing the team. And I think that was the ground that was very fruitful for them against top 6 sides last season. So I really don't think that you can underestimate the ground, the temperature, and what they're able to do at their own home ground. So I'm with you there. And I think that's why I pushed back a little bit. I saw a lot of frustration, on the timeline really briefly about the game in general. And look, there's parts to pick apart. There's parts to be annoyed about in the second half in terms of our control, for sure. But I did struggle to understand, because this is a first choice Brentford team against a team that has never played together. A lot of people in new roles. By the way, it wasn't just Emile Smith Rowe on the right central midfield. We had Tomiyasu at right center back as well. We had, of course, the return of Aaron Ramsdale and Yaku Kiwior, who I thought was flawless the entire game, playing not just left back, right center back as well. And that's not easy to do. And I think there was a lot of change. And I really don't think there was any cohesion in that lineup. I really don't think there was a single partnership that had played together, if you're really thinking about it, for at least more than 2 games. So, yeah, I did struggle to see like the disappointment that I saw at kind of full time.
Yeah, I think that's maybe a wider conversation about like expectations and wanting to, win every game 3-0 and playing really well. And that's just not going to happen throughout a season. Just having a look at the numbers, ball possession, 59% to us, which I think makes sense. And then if you look at the first half, 65% versus the second half, 53%. I think that marries up with the eye test, really. They had nearly double the amount of shots as us, but only 4 on target, which I think tells a story of a good defense today, and a good performance, as we mentioned. Nothing really of note, particularly. Ben White getting himself a yellow for the foul throws. We played almost 200 more passes than them. Higher accurate passes. They played more long balls. In terms of the duels, I've seen, maybe we should come to a certain man, Mr. Kai Havertz. I've seen some people really praising him for his duels. If we look at the numbers, he won half his aerial duels tonight and half his ground duels. I think it was a decent performance from Kai Havertz. I thought in terms of overall, Havertz had some nice moments, standing in some great places, had some good combination play, probably should have got an assist, had a pretty good game. Why do you think he is so polarizing? Because, I think part of the issue is the perception issue in terms of him being judged as a central midfield player rather than a centre forward. I think a lot of people are judging him as a kind of false 9, or in a kind of like, why you're not getting a goal, why you're not getting an assist. If you were just judging him as a central midfield player, most of his passes were accurate. He seemed to win a lot of his duels, certainly more than the stats tell you. I thought he won a lot of his duels. He did okay. I don't think he didn't change the world, but what is it? I mean, this is a wider conversation about Havertz, but
yeah, you know what? Okay, there's a couple things with Kai Havertz, and I think some of it's fair, some of it's unfair. Okay, so for the very first thing, when you look at this duels, the one thing I can say is Kai Havertz was not authoritative in his actions on the ball today. He knit things well together. I don't think that he really turned face and played a through ball, or at least carried through the center of the pitch. Ironically, I think the game off the ball was something that you critique his 8 partner for, and then vice versa. His 8 partner, Emile Smith-Rowe, showed a lot of what people demand from him on the ball. And that's the dichotomy. We thought we were buying a player that, despite potential frailties in his dealing with contact from behind, was going to be a lot of attack added value. And we're not seeing that. We're seeing a lot of defensive added value. And I think that dichotomy is a mismatch of expectations, but at the same token, I think a player of his quality and a player that is at over 250 grand a week that we're paying him, I don't know how accurate that is, but certainly above 200 grand a week. And for 65 million pounds, I think you're looking for more than complete defensive performances and complete passing accuracy. So at some point you're like, I understand the frustration, and I don't think he was bad. Like, I think that's 2 things can be true. He wasn't bad. No. Certainly wasn't great, So that's the frustration. And I guess also against a Brentford team where Kai Havertz is, let's have it right, one of the experienced pros on the pitch, right? And you're sitting there looking to him that if you're not going to have that on the ball value in a typical Premier League game, certainly against a Carabao Cup team, I know it's Brentford and I know it's a strong team, I think a lot of fans expect him to influence himself more on the team. And I think that just fundamentally is what it comes down to. But for the most part, he provided the defensive balance that I think that midfield needed. Jorginho himself, again, grew into the game. But you look at that midfield, that's a very ballsy midfield, by the way, to take to Brentford, who are a physical team themselves, right?
Yep.
Like playing 2 8s with a 6 that we know what happened on the weekend. And he had some nervy moments in the first half, Jorginho.
He did actually. I wanted to come on to this because I thought Jorginho had some nervy moments, but I also thought he was past the ball in some weird areas, specifically by Ramsdale and Gabriel at times. I thought, all right, you're like, I get, okay, maybe he should have done better, but also that's a strange place to pass on the ball. Just in terms of the shape of the game, I thought we were the better side of the first, and I thought we were under the cosh in the second. And in many ways, that's probably understandable for so many changes. Is there anything you take from tonight into the weekend? Is there any performances that you go, I want to see that starting on the weekend? Reece Nelson's probably closest for me in terms of on that left-hand side. The Jesus thing on the left-hand side is interesting. I suppose, yeah, is there anything that you take from tonight and go, yeah, this weekend, that's gonna have an impact?
Look, there's a couple. I mean, look, Emile Smith-Rowe is a player everybody knows I love. I think there's subjective bias there a little bit. We all have it. But I mean, he did offer us a level of central penetration that I kind of made this point in a group chat where broadly, I don't see what Vieira and Kai Havertz are offering more right now in even the limited minutes that we've seen of Emile Smith-Rowe that justify the minute distribution. So I don't know if I'd want him to start, but certainly if you're sitting there comparing Fabio Vieira and Kai Havertz for minutes in the Premier League team, the performance that I saw from Emile Smith-Rowe tonight definitely put him in contention. I mean, he was great, and bar a really great driving run, could have had a goal and a really smart save. And, you know, he did contribute to a lot of central access in this match. I definitely thought that. I agree with your Reece Nelson take. I think he's definitely the closest of the fringe, let's call it. And I'd probably like to end on Aaron Ramsdale and that whole discussion because, look, people are quoting me stats about how he was poor with his distribution. I really disagree. If you saw that match, there was a return to the air, Ramsdale breaking the lines and feeding with some excellent distribution. And I thought he was fairly composed. He makes an excellent save that, let's make no mistake about it, like that's a match-winning save for me. And for the most part, like all of what Aaron Ramsdale is great at, we kind of saw in this match, the way that he was receiving the ball, which wasn't as stiff as David Raya on the weekend. Like that competition and that spot is not as open as what I feel the Twitter arguments have been about. And I think that there's definitely is a conversation after tonight's performance for Aaron Ramsdale to say, look, after the derby, I deserve a go in the league if I'm going to perform like that, you know? So he's definitely someone.
I don't think this is a game you can watch. You can just look at from a statistic perspective, because I'm sure Ramsdale's performance probably doesn't come up in that. What you see is a bravery returning to Ramsdale's passing that you can only get from watching it, and you can know from how Ramsdale's been passing. I also think a part of it is where we're playing on the pitch. He's being asked different questions in terms of his distribution, in terms of where he can distribute to on the field, in terms of where we're playing. So I think he can, or maybe has the opportunity to break lines a little bit more and has more touches. However, I do feel he was a lot more brave. Some of those passes, those sort of straight passes into the midfield, into Nketiah's feet, into Havertz's feet. I feel like he varied it nicely. It wasn't all predictable. I feel like he made the right decisions. Okay, there was one bit slightly dodgy moment. I think maybe end of the first half, beginning of the second. I can't remember exactly when. But yeah, I think it's really encouraging. And you know, there was that moment where he turned to the crowd while the ball was still in the box when he just saved it. And look, it's just who he is.
Yeah, look, you love it too. You know, I love that part about Aaron Ramsdale, and you can't sit there and take that away. You know, and I think that there's been
I'll try.
Well, yeah, we all will, but there's a wider conversation, I think, on the type of goalkeeper that somebody might prefer. But in this temperature-raising atmosphere against a Brentford who were up for it under the cosh, I prefer Aaron Ramsdale than I do David Raya. And I think this is the type of game, mate. Like we've talked about it on the channel. What's a David Raya game? What's an Aaron Ramsdale game? And for me, this kind of temperature, this kind of environment is exactly something that I see him thrive in. So I don't view things as black and white about who's the number one. I think right now, David Raya's performance in the North London derby certainly left a platform for Aaron to step up, and I think he did. And if we're being meritocratic about it, I think he's somebody that absolutely deserves a chance to take his spot back, or at least give the option to. So I was proud for Aaron, and I thought he had one of the better games in the match.
Agree. Very much agree. Right. We're going to do a couple of questions and comments. So let's have a look at some comments. Dan says, I think he's playing quite well for some... so if I could read, Dan, that might help. I think he is playing quite well for someone who clearly has zero confidence. I think confidence is a part of it. I do think confidence is a part of it. Like, I don't think you can, that moment against PSV where he's got green grass to go into, and he just doesn't take it. You have to accept that there's an element of confidence. Finn says George sounds like he's skating. Are you in the car?
Huh?
Are you in the car?
No, I'm not in the car. No, I've got I don't know. I've got maybe an AC in the back. That could be the thing, but
I see.
My technical issues are not good today.
Yeah, you're struggling. Finn says if you watch that game on mute, you wouldn't know they're threatening us, and I agree. This is sort of the point I made earlier. Like, I think a lot of it comes from the of Brentford, and we go, oh god, we're under the cosh.
Yeah.
I'd still stand by what I said. I still think it was unnecessarily, or we could have calmed the game down a little bit more. But I also think that is a factor. Another thing that we've possibly missed, and someone has put it, City are out.
Whoa, I did miss that.
City are out against Newcastle. I haven't actually gone through the rest of the fixtures. So let me. Villa lost to Everton at home.
Wow.
Bournemouth beat Stoke. Classic. Chelsea beat Brighton. Bloody hell.
Wow.
Nicholas Jackson scored a goal. I'm sorry, Miss Jackson. Liverpool won 3-1 against Leicester. And yeah, Newcastle beat Man City with a honking lineup. Lascelles and Dummett and Target. Jesus Christ. Cedric man of the match. Do you know what? Genuinely, jokes aside, I thought El Neni played quite well. Cedric, I don't care. El Neni actually was quite good.
I mean, El Neni's always offered himself as a serviceable option. I think the biggest thing with El Neni is people are kind of ambivalent towards him, where they just wanted better quality, period. But he's always had performances in him. Like, I would not mind El Neni to be part of the squad if we're going to use him as maybe a stopgap, a finisher, if you're really kind of under the cosh, to sit there and just mop up and run, or be a pressing trigger. Like, I agree with you. I thought he was quite sharp. But maybe that was just a case of kind of adding somebody with a little bit of athleticism in a midfield that looked kind of shot for legs.
Yeah. He also needs to cash in his yearly El Neni screamer. So at some point we have to have it. Where were we? A few more questions. Stick your topics and stuff in the comments, and we'll come to them. It's just people arguing. Classic internet. You didn't even watch the game. Well, my opinion about it is better than your opinion. Well, your opinion is rubbish. Sago.
There you go.
Charles Sago. Arteta. What? Thank you so much. I trained as a singer. I'm meant to look up a quote from Arteta now. There's a quote from Arteta going around. What's he said? I'm concerned. To be fair, this was a night for memes. So, what's he said? Can someone post it in the comments? Because I feel like I'm missing out on some fun. Where are we? This is the joy of live streaming. Arteta on Ramsdale. I don't think I'm the one to answer the question about Aaron Ramsdale's quality, because I'm the person who signed him when no one else believed in him.
Wow.
No one else believed in him. It's quite a comment.
It's definitely pointed.
Yeah, we love him more for sure. Arteta on the love from Arsenal fans for Ramsdale. We love him more for sure. We have him every day. We know his character. We know what he brings to the team. He's been exceptional around the place. And to be fair, I thought Ramsdale we've said before, right? Like, we've spoken about the idea that this could be the best thing for Ramsdale, and in many ways, it looks like certainly a good start towards responding.
No, absolutely. And look, I get where I think Mikel's coming from. It's basically the Jamie Carragher comments, and it's basically the push by the media to debate and cause a drift. But look, I don't think Arsenal fans are much better. Like, everything I've seen on the timeline are player wars, determining who is the number one. And I think fundamentally, Mikel is right. He's kind of been very open about how he's seen David Raya and Aaron Ramsdale, from the pursuit to the action. And I think we just have to sit there as fan bases and take his points at face value. Listen, if he's sitting there and he's changing his tune in a couple weeks, then no problem. People can hold their hands up and admit that one person has beat the other out for the position. But fundamentally, there's been sharing of minutes. And I hear the frustration in his voice. As long as Aaron Ramsdale and David Raya are key, or have understood this, which I really doubt that they haven't had that conversation, since that was probably the first thing on everybody's lips. And so I think there's been an understanding in the dressing room, and I think just people outside the dressing room are trying to comment, and that's frustrating as a coach. He's lashed out.
Yeah, and possibly fair enough. Another question from Finn Boots. Finn, you've got a great football name. Finn Boots. Why didn't Cozier Dewberry start instead of Sago? George mentioned Sago. Sago doesn't play, usually play on the right, and I can't read. And I'm sure he said before that Cozier Dewberry plays there well, as I turn into an Italian. Why do you think Cozier Dewberry didn't get that moment tonight? Because it's Cozier Dewberry's left-footed, right?
Yeah, he's a left-footed right winger. I mean, look, 20 goals and assists in 31 games last season. I don't think that, Cozier
Only
Dewberry...
you would have numbers like that available, just ready. How many goals and assists did Cozier Dewberry get in the U21s?
Look, he's definitely somebody that I think is very close to the first team. I think Charles Ajo Jr. is definitely somebody that's had really good performances of late and had a really punchy start to the season. I'm sure it had to do with maybe training and in terms of just providing an opportunity. And I'm sure answering the call that a lot of us have levied at Mikel Arteta for not giving debuts. I mean, Cozier Dewberry has played last year. I think he was the better choice. Let me not mince words. I do kind of agree with the comment in the sense that if I was picking a team, Cozier Dewberry would have started over Charles Ajo Jr. But I think I just defer to kind of who was in training and rewarding a boy that hasn't had his debut yet. And I think that's as far as it goes, because I don't believe that Charles Ajo Jr. is a better right wing than Cozier Dewberry. And I don't think that Cozier Dewberry hasn't proved his readiness for the first team. I just think somebody performed really well in training and Mikel rewarded him.
Yep. Thoughts turn to the weekend, and Mikel's been speaking about injuries. He says he's not sure anyone's going to be necessarily returning. How would you look to play against Bournemouth? I'm looking at Nelson specifically, as I think this evening, if while both the left wingers are out and Nelson has a great performance on the left wing, if that doesn't get you into the team, I don't quite know what can. It could, it could be a selection thing of saying there's a tactical thing or whatever. But if you're not suitable for Tottenham and Bournemouth, then I'm starting to go, okay, well, what is he suitable for? Nelson for me is one of them. Kivior, honestly, I thought Kivior had a fantastic game, and I'm not saying we probably will play Zinchenko, but I thought Kivior was maybe closest.
Yeah, I mean, I'm kind of with you on Reece Nelson. I mean, look, assuming the two left wings are out, I think it makes it quite easy. I mean, who else is the alternative left wing option beyond those two, right? So I think Reece Nelson's probably a shoe-in if you're saying that nobody is back. And I'm assuming that Saka's fine. I think nobody new injured, I'm assuming, is that even the question marks are okay, like Declan Rice, I'm assuming okay. But I think Kiwior, he played brilliantly. I really don't think you can do much more. And he's somebody that I think Mikel trusts in order to switch positions like that, mate, that young, that uninvolved in the team. It says a lot about the coach's trust in you to be able to do that mid-game. And I just think if Zinchenko wasn't in such brilliant form defensively in the last couple games, I would have had a go with Jakub Kiwior. I just think that, Zinchenko's been brilliant. So I don't think he's done enough to deserve to be dropped necessarily. But Kiwior had a great game.
George and I recorded something on strikers earlier for a different knock, and we were talking about fundamentals. I just think Kiwior, in terms of if you could design a defender, just in terms of like height, springiness, quality, ability to get round you, ability to receive, like the hips, like everything. His body is perfect for a defender. And I just think as long as he grows in confidence and grows in kind of stature in the team, I think I see a pathway for him. Let's do one more question. Oh my God, George, it's about Napoli. Oh my God, it's about Osman. Oh my God. Off topic, George, but have you seen the Napoli Osman shenanigans? Have you seen it, mate?
No. Well, like new?
Have you seen? Yeah. So there's this player for Napoli called Victor Osimhen. You've never really mentioned him. You're not a massive fan of him, but
new player. I got to research that guy.
Yeah, have a look at him. I think you might like him. But yeah, I know you've got some thoughts on this.
Yeah. I don't know, mate. I don't know. I don't see a way back. Let me put it that way, because I'm trying to think of it from a human perspective, and I hate gleefully trying to smile about the links, and because I obviously love the player. The circumstance is just sad, mate. Like,
it's not a fun reason to be possibly leaving.
No, not at all. And I think it's a really messy divorce at this point. And I think that it's almost, what's the equivalent? Do you not think it would be maybe showing Bukayo Saka's miss for England?
It's unforgivable. Like when I know we look at it from an Arsenal perspective and go like, oh, what could that mean for us? But if you think about that, think like, I don't know, put like Jesus' miss at the weekend on and like play Joga Benito or something. It's like, what?
Yeah, no, it's
and that's actually not even at the undertones that it's really going for with the whole coconut thing and stuff. It's horrible.
Oh my God, it's horrible. And you know what? Like for me, I honestly just don't believe that this is a mistake on one man on social media. Like, clubs are so organizational based that there is an intention to everything, and I think
they know what they think will land with their audience. So I appreciate, yes, someone posted it, but you don't like, we like if I start talking about transcendental meditation on this channel, I'm not sure it would go down very much. I mean, like you've got to know your audience, so like it's kind of nope.
Yeah, like I really doubt that there's no oversight in terms of essentially saying that Victor Osimhen, our star striker, is going to receive that treatment and that's going to be okay.
Yeah.
So very, very odd for me. Very, very, very odd.
And do you like the player or?
He's all right. He can do a job for us. Certainly.
Do a job. Maybe CDM back up to on Nelly. Yeah. Listen, we're going to finish there. But these instant reactions are fucking hell. They're going to become a thing. And I promise next time I've had a long day. It's 10:30 in the UK. I'm going to go to sleep. But these are going to become a more regular thing. George and I
promise that I'll have a technological working laptop.
Yeah. Can I ask you two things? Because we spoke about this earlier. One, to change your Twitter profile, please. You have Mustafi in your cover photo. You have Mustafi. It's a disgrace. And the other thing is, to get a camera for next time. But we will be.
I think that if people are online, I think that we've had Alex kind of drop off at the worst possible time.
Oh, I can hear you. Can you hear me? I think I'm live, and I think you might have gone. Anyway, thanks as always. Oh, George is gone. Thanks as always, everyone. George is having technical trouble. These instant reactions will be more regular after every single Arsenal game. So we'll be here for half an hour on the channel. Chatting will be with me and George, or me and Bhavs, or George and Bhavs, or all three of us, depending on who's available. Thanks. Give us a little like. Give us a little subscribe. Thanks as always. See you soon. Bye-bye.